Hey guys, so I'm redoing this live stream because I kind of forgot some essential things to what I was going to say when I first did this live stream. But today I am doing the controversial fourth lie hit me like a wrecking ball, I swear. Anyways, controversial childcare tag. Now, this tag is, I'm pretty sure I'm just making it up. It's basically piggybacking off of the controversial parenting tag. But since I'm not a parent, I don't feel like I can do that tag. And as a childcare provider, I've definitely seen different things that work for kids, different topics kind of come up, and I'm just going to share with you my stance on them. And so there are 6 topics that I'm going to hit on today, and they're going to be kind of heavy and honest and deep. So let's get into it. So the first thing is the cried out method. Now, this comes from the controversial parenting tag. I am all for cry it out. Sometimes I don't feel like it's our jobs as babysitters to constantly be, or nannies too, but mainly babysitters since we do, night shifts, to constantly be soothing kids into sleep. I think one and done is okay. And I will turn this off so my musically shuts up. Well, TikTok, so used to calling it musically. Um, I think as a childcare provider, mainly a babysitter, since you're there only 1 day a week, maybe not even 1 day a week, 1 day a month, and you're only there for a few hours, doing the cry it out method, I don't think is a huge, it's gonna affect their psychology as psychologies affect their psychological being, you know, as opposed to maybe being a parent. I'm sorry, I just hit my desk that my laptop is on. Um, I'm okay with checking in on them once in a while, like every few minutes, but I don't think you should to a certain degree because just because I know, opening the door, like hearing that open and close while also like bringing light into the room, bringing things in that's gonna stimulate them is just gonna make them wake up even more. I think the best thing is to have a monitor that you can actually physically see the child and hear them is the best way and kind of more like kind of safer way to do the cried out method. Um, each kid I've worked with is obviously different. I still do the same cried out method with them. Most of them I check on after a few minutes. However, I do have one who is just hell on wheels to put down to bed, and I don't know if it's because he's been babied his entire life. He's the last one in his family, and if he's I don't know if he's been like rocked to sleep, all this time or really what that is. And I do let him cry it out for quite a long time, sometimes an hour, usually an hour, and then at that hour mark, I do check on him. Um, it's usually between 45 minutes really and an hour. Now, this being said, I do make sure that he's eaten, water and all those basic needs are met. I get really frustrated when kids, you put them down and they start having a huge fit for no reason. Once those needs are met, I think it's totally fine to do it. Obviously, like if they need something, you should attend to those needs. But I mean, really, if their needs are met and they're just really, crying it out and throwing a fit, like it's fine. Um, I think if you walk in, that kind of teaches them that they're going to get their way personally. Um, And I know with that kid, I've had to hold the door, and I felt like I've never done this, but I kind of felt like sometimes I've had to just like close the door and just lock it for a few minutes and then unlock it as soon as I know he's asleep. But I've never obviously done that. That's illegal and whatnot. Well, not illegal. It's just something you shouldn't do. And considering he's older now and he can go to the bathroom, you know. Anyways, yeah, he some kids are really bad because that's the problem with like not having cribs. It's not baby jail anymore, so they can get out of their beds and start playing with the doorknobs. And it's like you don't need to be out and about. It's bedtime. And I don't know why, because like I don't know why sometimes they have fits because it's like you're doing the same routine that the parents have told you to do and that they do with their kids. So I don't really know why, but that's my opinion on that. Wow, pacifiers and bottles after a year. So I worked at a daycare, as you guys know, and we had older 2-year-olds, and they were at that point where they were still having pacifiers, but then at one point we ditched the pacifiers altogether. Now I feel like this kind of goes the same for the same thing with like bottle feeding or like having bottles at night after a year. To me, how we separated kids at the daycare I worked at was 1-year olds were classified as young toddlers. I really, really don't see 1-year olds as being babies anymore. And I think that's just why, is because, we didn't classify them as babies anymore. They were young toddlers because they could walk. They can, we taught them baby sign language. So they were old enough to communicate their needs. They can feed themselves, they can hold their own bottle or sippy cup um, so yeah, I've seen the worst tantrums come out when it comes to pacifiers after a year. Um, I don't think it's a good idea. First of all, it's so bad for their teeth. I'm definitely not a dental assistant or anything like that, but just for like the development of teeth coming in, it's so bad. Same goes with bottles. I remember watching one of my kiddos have a huge, huge fit over his pacifier when his parents picked him up. And I just felt so bad because all the parents are trying to do is get their kid and like go home probably and make dinner. um, so I've seen the worst fits, like, and that kid like would not leave until the parents gave in and gave him his pacifier. I don't think it's a good idea. I think teaching kids, this goes with the cried out method too. I think teaching kids how to self-soothe without really like a pacifier, or I don't know, something kind of like babying, I guess, without babying them is a good idea. Um, with the cried out method and pacifiers, it kind of, you have to think long term with it. Like they're not going to have it forever. I mean, if they're in elementary school and they still have a pacifier, that's kind of weird and again bad for their teeth, for cried out and stuff. And I guess going into like babying them to fall asleep, parents aren't going to be there the entire time. Babysitters aren't going to be there entire time. There's not always going to be someone there to soothe them to bed. So I'm a huge advocate on self-soothing kids. And mainly because too, like I was self-soothed as a kid. I came here when I was 2, and I actually physically rocked myself to sleep in my bed. Nobody ever really like put me down. I literally rocked my bed, and you knew as soon as I passed out that I was passed out because it just stopped making noise and stuff like that. I would shake my bed to get myself to fall asleep. So anyways, that's my stance on pacifiers and bottles after a year. I still consider that to be like babying them, and I'm not for it at all. The next thing is spanking. Now, this is a huge one because as a childcare provider, no matter if you're a babysitter or um, a nanny, spanking is definitely just one of the things that is you have to be careful about because it might up be misviewed, conceived, I guess misconceived? Is that the word? Misconceived by parents, like, if they had nanny cams in their house and you didn't talk about discipline, with the parents and you end up spanking the kids, that can get you in a lot of trouble. I'm personally totally against spanking because, as somebody who's a super compassionate person, especially when it comes to kids, I just think there's a bunch of other ways you can discipline them. And I do think at some point the spanking can happen to where there's anger involved. Even if there's just like a little bit of anger, yeah, I'm just personally really against it. And again, as somebody who takes care of kids, it's not a good idea to spank the child unless you're privately like working for a family. You've talked about discipline and they said, spanking is okay. And if they have cameras and you've just talked about it, I think it's fine. In a daycare setting, however, that's completely not allowed. So there's no way you'd get away with that. The next thing is screen time. Now, this I thought, if you guys have been watching me for a while, you totally know that I was gonna be like against screen time when babysitting, but honestly, it's kind of been a lifesaver. And I think people totally dismiss the fact that technology has grown us so much over the years and that there are educational games and whatnot out there for kids. And, they do learn, their shapes and colors and letters and numbers and stuff from those things. I think though you should also work with them in that stuff, just to have another person there personally. Um, yeah, there's just so many times where I've thrown in the towel and, you know, um I'm like, it's gonna be good to shut them out for a few minutes, screens. I do let them have extended time with screens sometimes. So I had a kid that I was babysitting on Tuesdays, and he had a little sister who was 1, so she still took naps. And so she went down about 1ish, and I would let him watch TV 1 until like 2, 2:45. It was once a week. I don't think it's a big deal. Um, and he did really good with a screen in front of him, unfortunately, but um he had other things to do, but it's like those things aren't going to keep him occupied for however long his sister is going to sleep for, because it obviously depends how long she sleeps. So, and kids like play with something for like 5 seconds and then they're over it. So, yeah, I'm for screen time if it's limited, or, I'm just kind of for it now. So, schedule versus no schedule. I've worked with kids who have been on a schedule and then also kids who aren't on a schedule. And I am 100% for schedules. Kids need that prediction of what's going to come next and what's planned for the day. Um, they For me, the experience with having a schedule is so vital and important, and I've seen so many great outcomes with it. Um, yeah, I think too, like in the long term, and um just thinking like ahead in life, I think schedules are really important because later on as like an adult and even like a teenager, like you deal with schedules in your life. When you're, middle school, you have a schedule of when and where which classes to go to, and same with like high school and stuff. So I'm all for schedules. I don't know how people do it without schedules. I've really only had one family that didn't like have a schedule with their kids, and I would watch them at night, and they didn't have a bedtime because no schedule. And so it was pretty easy because they would play like board games with me and then go downstairs to watch wrestling, and by 9:30 they were out. So I'm personally all for schedules though, and I think it's vital for kids. Something to add, to go back to cried out and like soothing slash the pacifier and bottle. Question, I was going to add that I don't think it's good because kids come too reliant on certain things. So, I have an older brother, and he always slept with my dad when he was younger. and he my dad didn't stop sleeping in his bed until he was probably, like, early teens. So I'm just saying it's probably not a good idea. Okay, continuing. The last thing is sleep training. Um, for it, against it, 100% for it. I think sleep training's important. Um, I think people need to start doing research on how sleep affects the body. So your normal I heard this from Melissa Carthy on Kristen Bell's thing called Momsplaining. They were talking about tiredness and stuff, and they were saying, like, your average tiredness is, like, 1 glass of alcohol in your body. Um, I think people really need to understand how important sleep is for kids, and even as adults, it's so important. Um, I know there's a chart out there. You guys can Google it. It's on Pinterest, and it says the age and how many hours of sleep they should get. And then for like younger kids, it talks about naps and how long that should be. Sleep really does affect the body significantly, and I really just think people need to research it and really figure out how that is with their kids, you know. I think that's all I want to say on that. Um, just I guess sleep training and scheduling kind of go hand in hand a little bit because I think there's a time like kids need to be down in bed and that they should like stay in bed until, early morning when they get up. But I think that's all. I think I added the things I wanted to say about these things. So if you guys want to do this tag yourself, please do. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are and kind of everybody's experience with this kind of stuff. I feel like I picked out these that could really apply to childcare providers, like the cried out method, pacifiers, spanking's a huge one, screen time, scheduling and sleep training, which is obviously all that I just talked about. I think they can really apply to childcare providers. So I hope you guys had a wonderful 4th of July for those who are in the United States. It was crazy yesterday. We had a really good fireworks show actually here. Somebody new did it and they did an amazing job. If you go on my Instagram, Teresa underscore Benson. Here, I don't have Instagram on my phone anymore because I'm trying to limit my use on that and stuff like that. But Teresa underscore Benson, my picture is the same as my YouTube picture, which is somewhere. I mean, right now in this live stream, it's up here, but it's probably down here, down here. Um, it's the same. So go follow it. You can see the fireworks and just keep up with my life. So I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Recuperate from 4th of July if you guys celebrated, and I will see you all later. Bye.